Alright guys, let's get started. Thank you all for coming on this week of midterms and stuff. Today is a meeting on front-end development. I'm super excited for this meeting. First, a couple of announcements. Next week our meeting will be on comp sci and network engineering industry. We'll have some guest speakers from Verizon. It'll be cool. There will be pizza. Please come. The week after that will be spring break. So we're not gonna have a real meeting. We'll just have like a Minecraft and chill night. 3 weeks from now, we'll have an info session from JP Morgan. So watch out for that. Also, our calendar is usually updated at our website, ufssd.org. All right. Come on, I'm pressing. There we go. All right, so today I'm going to talk about, basics of front end. I'm going to go into CSS and styling solutions, React and reactivity, obviously a really important part of front end, and then I'll talk about deployment. And please, of course, please, if you have any questions at any point, please interrupt me. All right, so what is front end? Front end is really all of the files, all of the assets that make up, that get sent to the user's browser and makes up the part of the website that the user sees and interacts with. It's all of the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, any assets such as images, vector files, what have you. All of that is displayed on the browser. And a front end will typically interact with a backend on most websites. Most websites have a backend. Backend is basically your server code. Backend usually meant to communicate with a database. So like if you have a website that has dynamic content, such as you log on, you see recommendations, that requires a backend. Right. All right, so where to start? So front-end development is a huge beast nowadays. There's so many frameworks, libraries, languages. It's really hard to know where to start. And so really, you have to start out by learning the basics of HTML and CSS, because those really aren't things that you can escape. Like, you basically have to know them. And you don't even have to be like an expert in them. You really just have to know, what is the syntax, what is it used for, the structure, and the most important parts of it. And then move on to,
I think you can get away with watching a 1-hour video tutorial on how HTML works.
You definitely could. You definitely could get away with watching a 1-hour video on HTML. Yeah. And then I guess you can just move on to moving JavaScript. And really with that, it's the same thing. Like in my opinion, you should try to move on to learning React as soon as possible. Just get all the HTML, CSS, JavaScript out of the way as soon as possible. And really with HTML, there's dozens of HTML tags. I don't even know how many there are. Maybe there's over 100. But really you could make an entire website with basically just these. These are the most important HTML tags. You have P, for paragraph, this is your text. This is like a divider. It's like an invisible container, but then you can it doesn't have to be invisible. You can add a border or background color with CSS. A is your link. I don't know why it's A, but it's just a link. This is your image. You have buttons. You have tables. Input is really any sort of user input. Your text fields, your check boxes, your sliders, your multiple choice questions, your select alls, your basically anything. You have unordered lists, which are bullet points. You have ordered lists, which are numbered lists, right? And before we go on any further, if you want to follow along with a demo that I'm going to go through, you can go to this URL here. I'll paste it in the chat. I think you might need to have an account for Code Sandbox. Yeah, you might have to have an account for Code Sandbox, but yeah. And then you can edit it as you wish. It'll just make a fork on your account. Right, so let's move on to CSS and styling solutions. Right, so CSS, in its most basic sense, is just a language used to style HTML. Once again, in a very general sense, it can modify the color, position, size, and even create animations, basic animations for HTML. And this is an example of a CSS class here on the right. So we have a class called card, and we have a set of rules that basically look like a bunch of key value pairs. So like we have, background color here, we specify the background color, which is, specified in hex codes, and then I'll go more in depth into it in the demo, right? Something that you do need to consider when you're making websites is browser difference, how the differences in how browsers will render CSS. Like you might not consider this, but in my internship, I did see that, most of the visual bugs on the website I was working on was like on Safari, especially mobile Safari. So it is something you need to consider, except for Internet Explorer. Don't even bother with Internet Explorer in this day and age. Like another thing that happened in my internship was AT&T asked my team to support Internet Explorer, and we were like, no, like sorry, it's not gonna happen. Yeah. So there's CSS and HTML are standards, meaning that browsers will implement these standards, but they can also implement their own additional HTML tags or CSS rules. And browsers actually do this. So there's two common extensions for CSS. One is Webkit. Webkit is something that Apple made for their Safari browser. Although it's not just supported on Safari, it's basically supported by every major browser. So we're on CSS 3 right now. Once CSS 4 comes out, a lot of features of WebKit will probably become part of CSS 4. And Mozilla also has their own extension. Doesn't have as much support, but, just consider it. Yeah, so Mozilla's CSS rules start with -moz-, and WebKit's CSS rules start with -WebKit-. Right. All right. So I'm going to move on to this website I made here. It's a React app. Let me minimize this. Yep, so this is a really simple web page. It's a Minecraft fan club app. So I have it running in React, but don't even worry about React right now. This is about CSS, right? So if you're ever trying to style a web page, the dev tools are your best friend. And you can access that by right-clicking and clicking on Inspect, or doing F12. And with this button here that I'm hovering over, you can click on it, then just hover over any HTML element you want to inspect. And here we can see, its position in the HTML document up here, and down here we can look at what CSS rules are being applied to it. So, we can see the background color. Color is just text color. It's not like the background color. So, yeah. Here we have a shadow. We added a round red radius here. We added margin on the left and right. Yep. So something that's really useful here is you can look at the layout here. And this, so this is actually, it's kind of important knowing the distinction between margin and padding. Margin is like the spacing outside of the border. Padding is the spacing between the border and the content of our element, so the text in this case, right? And there's also this cool thing. We can just modify the CSS with these sliders here. So instead of needing to go into the CSS file and typing some code, saving it, moving back into the browser in a kind of trial and error sort of way, we can modify the CSS directly within the browser. And it won't save it within our CSS file, but it will create CSS rules right here, which we can just then copy and paste into our code. Yep. So here we can see this HTML element uses the CSS class card. So we can take these rules that we just created. We created these rules from, messing around with this. We can just copy it into our card class. Yep. So with this CSS class, you can reuse it onto any div that you see. So it's really useful in that sense. Yep. So typically you want to apply CSS rules with classes, right? So we have the class card, we apply it, class name equals card, and we, yeah. Yeah, so the basic format for a class in CSS, so card is the name of our class, and then since, and we have a period if we want to denote that it's a class. If we didn't have a period, then this would just apply to like the tag card, which doesn't actually exist, so it wouldn't work. This needs to have a period here. And then it kind of looks like JSON, but yeah, so each line has like a key and a pair. Yeah. A tag it's literally just this is a tag. So HTML, every HTML like element has a beginning tag. So like yeah, so this is like a beginner tag here, and then there's an ending tag here. So that is basically every HTML element. I mean, some of them don't have an ending, like this, like your images, you don't put anything inside of an image. So you just have this with like a slash at the end. But yeah.
So on line 23, where it says give class name card.
Yeah.
So what does including that class name equals card do?
So what this does is you have this div. You have this div where we just give a top 5 fun facts about Minecraft. And you know that for this card, we want to apply some CSS that we define here. And this is really just the way of saying what CSS class you want to have. So you can add other CSS classes. If you want to also add the list item class, you can do that, although it might not turn out very well. So yeah, you literally just add the CSS classes that you want to have inside of class name. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sort of. So if you were, so could you remove that could you like remove that whole class there and then would it still function?
Yeah, it would still function. It would just look really ugly. Yeah, or well, not ugly. It just wouldn't have like the, background and all that.
Okay, so by adding the class there, it's like you're adding this particular kind of style to that.
Right. So like, let's take this apple.com website, right? If you want to delete all of the CSS of a website, inspect element and delete this head tag, and that will delete all of the CSS. So now it's like we've traveled back to the year 2002, and like, there's no CSS here. So it will still function. It'll just not really look super good. So yeah. So yeah. Yep.
So I take it then that head tag is what includes all the classes from CSS.
Say that again.
So is it that like that head tag that's what
Yeah.
includes the classes?
Yeah, in React, you don't actually need to mess with the head tag. Like React will put the classes in the head tag for you.
Okay, so if you start using a class, it'll be like, okay, I'll add that to the head tag.
Yeah, in React, you literally just import the CSS class like up here, and then you can use it however you want. Can you repeat that? Yeah, so we have home.js. This is our React component. Home.js is the React component that renders this entire page. It basically just holds the HTML. And then we import the CSS, which is all of the styling, all of the colors, all of the font changes. Yeah. Just, yeah. Our JS files are our React files. Yeah, so how I would think of, yeah. React is written in JavaScript. Yeah, so it'll all be in .js files. Like, I mean, React isn't exactly written in JavaScript. It's actually written in JSX. If we want to be specific, JSX is like a syntax extension of JavaScript. And how I like to think of it is it's just like JavaScript, but you can have HTML as values and return HTML, like functions can return HTML. So a function component literally just is a function home, and we return all of this HTML. And that's literally all a React component is. No, in normal JavaScript, you like this wouldn't make sense because you can't just have JavaScript. I mean, you can't just have HTML as like values. So it would try to like parse this and be like, you know, what is div? I don't know what div is.
Basically, like combine the two syntaxes.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That is exactly basically what it does. Yeah. Honestly, I was gonna explain React a bit later, but yeah. Yeah. So responsive styling, another really important thing. Responsive styling, basically what that means is as the size of your screen changes, then the CSS also changes to make better use of the size of the screen. Like, what's so funny? How is it the meme? Yeah. So like for example, if you have like a big monitor, you can afford to have a lot more white space, a lot more components on the screen. But if you have a website on like a little device, you know, you're probably not gonna have as much white space because you don't have as much like real estate to work with. So the information is gonna be more dense. Yeah, so let's go back to our website. It looks, or let me add the card class again, since I removed it. Yeah, so I mean, our website looks okay on desktops, right? I mean, it's not perfect, but oh yeah. So something you can do to see how a website would look like on mobile is with this button up here. That looks like a phone and a tablet. So here we can literally just pick like a phone that we want this to look like. Oh, like I have an iPhone 13 mini? Yeah, sure I do. So this is how our website looks like on iPhone 13. Hold on. I think I need to remove something. Yep. All right. Ignore that I just did that. Yeah, so this is what our website looks like on desktop. I mean, does anyone see any kind of problem with this? It looks kind of funky. We have like way too much margin on the sides for the size of our screen. And once again, we can like hover over this to see exactly how much margin we have. So we have a 25% margin on the sides. So like 25% of the screen width of space here, 25% of the screen width of space right here. You know, we denoted that with the margin left 25%, margin right 25%. And that, I mean, that would work on desktop like we had, but it's kind of you know, it doesn't seem to fit on mobile. So what we want to do is we want to override the margin left and right styling on mobile. And we can do that with something like this. Honestly, this first line here, I always have to look up. Like, it's so weird. But basically what we do here is, what this says is, like, everything in here, like everything within this block will only apply for screens that have a max width of 600 pixels. Yeah, question. This is just a regular CSS implementation. Yeah. So, and something to note here is that in CSS, PX does not mean pixels, like an individual physical pixel on a screen. A PX is about 1/100th of an inch, so it's like a physical length. Yeah, so what we do here is within this block here, we redefine the margin left and right of the card class. So once we save that, then we can see, instead of having 25% margin on each side, we just have like 0.3 inches on each side, or like 32 px on each side. So it looks a lot better. Yep. So so 600 here is what's called a breakpoint. And each website will typically have a number of breakpoints to define like different device sizes. So like, small phones are typically up to like 480 px in this example. Then you have tablets, then you have laptops, then like your big monitors, and then like if you have like a really big TV. Right. So when you're developing a website, you typically want to like kind of like try a lot of screen sizes to make sure that it looks good. Because if you have a website that looks great on desktop, but it looks like a piece of crap on mobile, then your website isn't all that good.
I don't know if you've gone over this yet, or if you've gone over it and I haven't been here. But how does it know what your PX is?
That's a good, yeah. So a lot of devices have different like pixel densities, and so that's exactly why one PX does not exactly translate to one physical pixel. One PX is meant to be 1/96th of an inch. So like, on your screen, if you take like a ruler and like put it against your screen, then like 96 PX is going to be 1 inch typically.
Right, but the thing I was trying to ask is like, how does that information get conveyed to React to decide which, way to display it?
I don't understand the question.
So the short answer is it doesn't. The browser receives all of the HTML and the CSS, and that's set up for the device, and it knows because it's being rendered client side.
Okay.
So React doesn't care about it. It's the browser itself that's rendering that.
Okay.
Yeah, this isn't like React specific stuff. This is like CSS. It should work on like really wherever you're using CSS. Yeah. All right. Now, finally, time to get into React. I didn't mean to get into React later, but this is where we finally get into React. Or, so reactivity is the technology underlying these 4 frameworks. React is the most popular one. It's backed by Facebook, so it'll be around for a while. And it has excellent third-party library support. Basically, anything you want to do, you can probably find a library that helps you out for React. Yeah. I mean, like, the Facebook website uses React. So, like, I guess you could say, like, Facebook. I mean, I don't know who exactly it is who maintains React. Yeah.
Are these like the same thing with Bootstrap and Bulma?
No, these are JavaScript frameworks. Bulma and Bootstrap are tools to help you out, like, styling-wise. Like, they basically spit out CSS. So this is like something different. Yeah.
Why is it called reactivity?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know why it's called reactivity, but I guess we know why React is called React, because it's just copied the name of reactivity. But yeah. So Angular was actually the first one. It was made by Google, but it's not as popular as React. Vue is another common one. I don't think it's backed by any major company. It's like an open source thing, I'm pretty sure. Svelte is the newest one, but like no one uses it. Also, it doesn't work super well, apparently. But I just thought I would mention it. Yeah. So before I explain how React works, I should explain how the DOM works. The DOM is something that every website has, regardless of whether it uses React or not. The DOM is basically the tree that makes up your website. What is so funny? Yeah, the emoji. Yeah. So the DOM is the tree that makes up your website. So like the outermost tag of any HTML document is the HTML document. I mean the HTML tag right here. Then you have your head tag, which holds any metadata, like what is the name of our website, what is our description. That's all stuff that'll show up in like Google results. Your body is all of your content. Oh yeah, and as I mentioned, like you can import like if you're working with pure HTML and CSS, then you would typically import your styling and JavaScript inside of your head tag. But yeah, your body is just all of your content. So like in here we can see inside of our body we have a heading tag H1 and a link tag A, and then in our DOM tree we have a heading tag and a link tag, which are children of the body element in the tree. Yeah, it's really basic. However, a problem with the DOM is that if you change any element in this tree, everything in the DOM will be rendered if you're not using React. So like if you change something like way down here, like sorry, everything's got to re-render. So React keeps track of what's called a virtual DOM. And a virtual DOM, it knows what changes, and then it calculates which part of the DOM actually needs to change, and it'll only update that. It'll only re-render that. And so that will typically save you some good amount of time in processing power, time in re-rendering. So it's really useful. So if you only change like this component here, then it'll re-render that component in the DOM and also its children.
What exactly does DOM mean?
You mean like what does it stand for? What is it?
Document object model.
Yeah, that it was like on the tip of my head. I mean on the tip of my tongue, but yeah.
This is just something every website has.
Yeah, every website has this, has a DOM, regardless of whether it uses React. A virtual DOM is like a React thing. Yeah, so it's just meant to make it a bit quicker.
As a bit quicker, do you mean a bit quicker for developers or also quicker for end users?
Just in re-rendering time, because like if you had to re-render everything on the screen every time there was a change.
Well, yeah, as in changes, do you mean change to the code, or as in like change to the current state of like the website?
The change as in the current state of a website.
Okay, so even like as an end user, you experience like the benefits of virtual DOM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
It's primarily performance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about performance. All right, guys. I think this means it's time for a demo. All right, so we're gonna get a bit more deep into this React website once again. The URL is written on the chalkboard. If you guys need it on Zoom, maybe Ranger can type it. But yeah. All right. So as I mentioned, React is or hold on. Let me pull up some. Yeah, so we have, I was looking at home.js here. Yeah, so as I mentioned, a React component is literally just a function that returns some HTML. So we have some HTML here. We also have some CSS. We don't really have, like we could also define some JavaScript up here. We could have like, or not int. You don't use int in JavaScript. You could have like const message equals, I love Minecraft, right? And then you just paste it here. And then a way to, in React, you can escape HTML and start writing JavaScript with brackets. So in here, like it'll, since we have brackets, it'll just output what is inside of our message variable. And then, yeah. Oh yeah, this is home.js.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where.
It's line like 17. Yeah. Whereas if you didn't include these curly braces, then it would literally just say like message right here. Yeah. so you do need those curly braces. So basically, like React bundles all of this, and it bundles everything here, and it abstracts it, and then we can basically call it like a custom HTML tag. So hold on. So in app.js, we're actually calling the home element. It's like we made a custom HTML tag here. Basically what this is it says what pages should we see given the path. So on our base path, so just slash, we see the home element. If we go to the URL slash purchase, then it'll show us the purchase page. Yep. So this is the SSD Minecraft server marketplace. Yep. So something to note. Yeah. So something to note here is that if you want to have multi-page HTML, like multi-page websites in pure HTML, meaning no React, then it's really easy. You would probably have an HTML file for each page of the website. So you would have like home.html for your home page. You would have about.html for your about page. And you would link to it with literally a link tag, your A tag. So you would let's say this little HTML snippet is in our home.html. So we'll see a link that says about us on the home page, and it'll take us to about.html. href, by the way, I don't know why it's called href. I think it means like something reference, but yeah, like this will link us to about.html. In React, it's not so easy. React is kind of a different story. React doesn't have very friendly native. It doesn't have a very friendly native way to have multi-page documents. And so a library that's really common is called React Router DOM. It's spelled like this for the node packages. Yep, and this is what I showed right here. So we enclose everything in a browser router. Here we specify our routes, and we literally just have like a list of routes down here. We can even have like a duplicate here. Like, let's say we also want /home to render the home element. And then when we go here, we go to /home, it'll show us our home component. So that's neat. Yep. So I'm gonna get a bit into
Can you go back to the app.js?
Yes.
So could you just explain in detail what is happening on line 14?
Yes. So think of this like this is not something that renders really. Like basically all we're doing here is we're specifying what we want to render, or like we're specifying which component we want to render when we go to a specific path. Path as in like what text is after the slash in our local host. So if we're at our base slash, meaning nothing but the slash.
Yeah, I see that. What about the L? What comes after L?
Home. Yes.
So what is that referring to?
Home refers to so we imported home up here from home.js. Home is this entire React component. Like we defined it up here. and we exported it down here. So it literally just shows us all of this when we go to the URL /home.
It's the entire function or it's the entire
So yeah, so in this file, like we created this React component and we named it home, and then we exported it. So then we can literally you call React components, you know, by its name. So like we named it home up here, and then you literally call it like it's a custom HTML tag. Yeah.
So the function is the React component.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's exactly it. This is the React component.
I'm sorry if you're asking questions, but
No, you're.
I could probably just like learn the HTML.
No, you're good. No, you're good. Yeah.
You said that.
Yeah. So yeah. So I was about to mention yeah. So how important is it to learn CSS? This is something that Jonas has asked me like 20 times. Yeah. So Jonas, I mean not Jonas. CSS is not like. Yeah, so like, I mean, as I mentioned with the Apple thing, I mean, if you don't use CSS, your website's gonna look like a piece of shit. So like, you need to use CSS of some form. With that being said, the way CSS is being used has changed in recent years. Using pure CSS in .css files, like I was doing here, is not as common anymore. There's a lot of other solutions out there that are safer and just yeah, just more easy to use. Well,
That's the point of the next slide.
yeah, no, that is a great follow-up. Like what? Hold on, question. No, it's. I didn't mean safe as in security vulnerability. I mean safe as in like you can literally put like a garbage rule here with like garbage value, and like it's not gonna throw an error. Like it's literally just gonna render and like not even like give a crap. Like, but there's other solutions out there that will either throw an error or just throw out this rule entirely to not like create bloat in your website. Yeah, so that's what I mean by like it's not as common anymore to just write pure CSS in .css files anymore. Yeah.
Like how in C++, you can do stuff that will still make your program.
Yes, basically. Like CSS doesn't care what you do. You can put in garbage, it'll be like, sure, whatever. Yeah, so a solution that is actually commonly used is this package called styled components. I use it on purchase page. Yeah, so you would import it like this, import styled from styled components. And then basically it's kind of like these, yeah, I'm gonna hide this. This is like our command line, but I'm gonna hide this to give us more space. But something that we're doing here is like we're like the custom, or I mean the default HTML button looks like a piece of crap, honestly. Like I have a picture of it somewhere here. Yeah, this is like the default HTML button. It looks like garbage. Like no one's gonna use that. And so I'm defining my own button here using the styled components library. Basically, like this is CSS. And then I can call this basically like a React component right here. So basically what this is almost equivalent to if I had just a regular button, but with a class that had all of this. It's not exactly the same, but you can kind of think of it like that. So something extra that styled components will do is it can actually, well, one, it'll throw away any like garbage CSS that you have in there. So like with the example, if I had that, I probably won't use that. But also it'll put in extra CSS to make sure that it works on all browsers. So kind of like how I mentioned before of how, you know, Safari has their own like Webkit CSS, you know, styled components might, you know, also add some Webkit CSS rules to make sure that it works on Safari, it works on everything, right? And so another benefit of this is that like your code becomes more descriptive of what it actually is. So like we have this, it's almost like we're defining really lightweight React components. Like we defined buy now button, which is really just this up here, but with an extra background rule. And then we call it down here. And so instead of having just button, we call it buy now button. So it's more descriptive. Yeah, so it's a really good way to if you just had like a bunch of divs, kind of like how I do here, like you can see I have a ton of divs. But if I used styled components, I would be able to name these like, you know, something to be more descriptive, like homepage container. But no, instead I just have to name it div if I'm using like pure CSS. So it just makes your code a bit more clear, a bit safer. Hold on, let me go back. Yeah, hold on, any questions so far before I go to the next part? All right. Yeah, so I have this page here. Let's go back to our purchase page. Yeah, so we have the marketplace for the SSD Minecraft server. Obviously, it's not done. Like, you know, we don't just have one person selling one carrot. You know, who knows? We might want to have more things selling in the future. So yeah, so we have this defined right here. Yeah, so all of this, this is the container, or this is all of this is this right here. So obviously, if we want this website to actually work, then we're going to want to have a lot of these components, and we're going to want to pass in and like the relevant data. So as in the name of the item, the price, and the image. So I mean, you know, if you want to have a lot of these, then what you could, I mean, what you could do is like copy and paste that, and then like change to the name like house, and then we sell it for like 50 emeralds. And then we, instead of having an image of a carrot, we have an image of the house. So let's save that. Oh. Expected closing tag for price text. Oh, I accidentally deleted the opening arrow. Yeah. So we can see we added a second component here. Obviously, this isn't the answer because we just, because one, this is a lot of repetition. Like we literally just copied this here and pasted it there. So it's like a lot of code copying, and also it's hard coded. Yeah. Yeah, so item thumbnail, this is not a native HTML tag. We define it up here. Item thumbnail, this is an image tag, but with just this added CSS. And same with, you know, price text. Price text is a P, which is text, but with this CSS. Yeah, this is the styled components library. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just like tags that have its own CSS. Yeah.
So it's like you're making your own CSS tags that are easy to read.
You're making your own HTML tags. Yeah.
You're making your own HTML.
Yeah. So,
I'm starting to get confused about what CSS and what's HTML.
okay, so CSS is literally just, this is CSS. CSS is written in basically a list of a key and a value. Like anywhere where you see like, something like this, you know, where you have like open and close arrow brackets, that's HTML.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously what we had here wasn't the answer because it was like we're repeating code and also we're hard coding. And you know, hard coding doesn't really bring us anywhere. So we have this component here. We're gonna want to use it many times and pass in relevant data. Obviously this would make for a good React component. So we're gonna create a brand new React component here. So new file, we're gonna call it store item. Store item.js. Oh, I think I already defined it when I was like running through this on my own. So I'll just delete it. Yeah. So store item.js. All right. So we're gonna have function store item, and we're literally just gonna copy. I mean, we're literally I don't like this spacing 4. I always like writing my React stuff in spacing of 2. All right. Yeah, so I'm gonna copy all of this. I'm gonna paste it in there. This isn't gonna work right away because, you know, we haven't defined item thumbnail in this file. We're gonna need to cut it from here and paste it in here. Yeah. And then let's also copy our imports. Yeah. And then once we defined our function, we're gonna want to export it. So export store item. Yes, question. What do you mean the backticks? This is specific to the styled components library. Honestly, I didn't know this was like valid JavaScript syntax, but you know, it works. So
It's called a template string.
okay, yeah, it's a template string. Just trust Blake. Yeah, yeah. So like styled, that's that's like the name of the library that we've imported. HTML button is the name of the HTML tag that we're adding CSS to, and then this is the CSS, right? Yeah, so we've basically taken our caret item, we've moved it into its own thing right here. All right, and now we can import it. So import store item from store item. You don't need to write .js. In TypeScript, you actually can't write it, but yeah. And then, so once we've imported our component, oops, we're gonna call it. So let me just get rid of this. And then once again, we literally call it like it's a custom HTML tag. So we have it like that.
Can I see the store item right there?
Yes.
Can you still have the
Yeah, I literally just copied like this div right here that used to be in purchase page, and I pasted it in here.
Yeah, I'm getting kind of. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing wrong because I keep getting there quickly.
Oh. Yeah, Blake's coming to the rescue.
I do want to learn this on the conscious of pair programming.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard to see. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, what was the issue? Oh, these curly braces? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you
It's so when you return, you have to have parentheses, not curly braces. So curly braces would open an object literal there. Parentheses is identifying the thing that follows the expression.
hold on.
Another syntax.
Maybe I should zoom in. I'll zoom in. Yeah, there we go. All right. So yeah, I took the store item. Yeah, I took the store item that we just made. I'm calling it here, kind of like it's a function. Why isn't this updating? What the hell? Why is it still showing the house? All right.
It's outside that div that displaying.
I'm gonna-
Didn't you copy the house stuff into the store?
Look, it literally says it's not being read. Hey Jonas, how's the OS exam?
You imported that into the store.
Oh, that's right. Did I paste two components in here?
You just pasted the house stuff
Well, then why is the caret here?
because you didn't delete the other div and the.
Oh, that's right. Wait. Yeah, okay. Yeah, my bad. All right. Yeah. Yes. Export, yeah.
I just wanted to.
It's semicolons are optional in JavaScript. I would recommend having semicolons, but yeah. Oh, bye, Trevor.
More syntactical than that.
Yeah, like I would recommend using semicolons, but yeah, you don't technically have to.
There are bugs you will run into if you don't.
Yes. All right. So now we've abstracted our store item into a tag that we can call many times, like it is a function. But once again, it's still hard coded. So we can actually pass in parameters because it is a function after all. So React takes in parameters through a JSON object called props. Anyone here not familiar with JSON? Okay. All right. So yeah. So this is hold on. So this is a JSON object. It's enclosed in curly braces, and it is in key value pairs. So we have three keys in this JSON object: name, price, thumbnail. We have key, colon, value. Where did Jonas go by? Oh, Jonas. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a JSON object. Like JavaScript doesn't have objects the same way Java does. Like you're not gonna do class whatever. Like this is just what JavaScript uses for data. And so we're gonna have so React components take in data through a variable called props. So it's gonna look like this, hopefully. Right? I'll just comment that out. So we can do like name equals caret, thumbnail equals Caret is the name of the image we imported. Yeah, so we're literally just defining the parameters here. So we have our name, our thumbnail, oh yeah, and our price. Our price is just a string. So how much was it again? Like 1 emerald, whatever. Yeah, and we literally do the same thing for the rest of them. So we also have a house, which we sell for a house. We're selling a house for 2 emeralds. That's just the market right now. And then what was the other thing we were selling? Sword. Okay, yeah, we have a diamond sword. That's our sword image, which we're selling for 50 diamond blocks. Once again, trees are like about to go extinct, so we can't make sticks. Yeah. Okay, we've passed in the parameters. We're not actually using them, so we need to edit the store item component. So yeah, we do that here. Oh, what was that? Yeah. So we get like, this is stuff that we've hard coded in house 50 emeralds. We're gonna get rid of that. So, and we do props dot thumbnail. Yeah. So as I mentioned before, this is what our props object is gonna look like. Just an object. And if this is our object, then we can call it with like props.name, and it'll return caret, right? Yep, so here we have props.thumbnail, that's our image. Props.name, that's our name. And once again, if we don't have the squiggly braces, then it is literally going to print like the string props.name, which is not what we want. So we do need to use the, yeah, curly braces. Then we have props.price. All right. We did it, guys. All right, so yeah, we created our 3 components. Yeah, each one with its own image, name, and price. Yeah, really simple example of how you would pass data to a React component. Yeah.
Two questions. First off, where did we define props?
We defined it up here. Technically, you can call props whatever you want. You can call it like, I don't know, like Among Us. But it, like, I've literally only seen it called props. Like that's just the convention.
And so, so what is like name? Is name like a property of props or something?
It is, because we passed in name up here. And so name is going to become part of the props object, so it's thumbnail and price.
Could you have like written any property you wanted there, like not just name, thumbnail, price?
Yeah, you're literally just defining like what data do we want our component to use. We could also pass in like seller, right? Like seller equals, Eric.
Okay, and then you would go to store it, and then there you would just access seller.
Right. So here we would do like seller props dot seller.
Interesting. Okay, and my second question is, what is Canada?
Oh yeah, ignore that. Like this was originally like supposed to be a marketplace for seltzer water, but I changed it to a Minecraft marketplace. Yeah, but okay, so alt is like an accessibility prop. Basically, people who are like, blind and using screen readers, the website will read the image as Canada Dry. So yeah, like if I don't have alt, it's gonna probably underline this in yellow because it's kind of a bitch about making you use accessibility features. But yeah.
Ooh, the ADA.
Question. Yeah, so what? Yeah, this is the only one that has the property seller. That's just the JavaScript thing. Like JavaScript, for all the other ones, when it does store. Oh, why did I delete it? Yeah, so if you do props.seller, for all the other ones, props.seller is going to be undefined, which will give you an empty. It will basically give you an empty string. So yeah, the other ones just say like seller nobody. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why my name disappeared. Yeah, so it's just like a JavaScript thing. Like, if it tries to access a parameter that's not there, it just gives you undefined, which is like an empty string. Yeah.
Can you have default values?
It's a good question. I mean, yeah, you can make them have default values. You could make it like, oh, if props is undefined, then make the what?
Question mark, question mark.
Okay, yeah.
Using or like that is not good.
Okay, so you would have like props.seller. No. Okay, it's been a while since I've done this. Okay. Props.seller. Unknown. Alright, so I mean everyone knows what this is. This is like a ternary. Yeah, this.
Props.seller question mark unknown.
What?
So question mark is null coalescing.
Why would it have to be two question marks?
Because that's an operator in JavaScript. Like we move props.seller colon. So that question mark operator says if what's on the left hand side is not null or undefined, return it. And if it is null or undefined, then use the one on the right. Okay, well
this is another way to do it. This is like your. I mean, you can do that. I think that's like a new feature.
That's the best way to do it. 100%, it is the best way to do it.
But that's like a new feature of JavaScript, isn't it? To have like.
Well, I mean, sure, but it's in every other major language too.
Okay, yeah. So you can do what Blake did, but everyone knows what the ternary operator does, because that's like what JavaScript has. I mean, that's what JavaScript has. That's what Java has. That's what C++ has. So if props.seller is defined, then we return it, and if not, then it's unknown. Right. How has this meeting gone on for so long? Okay, I'll try to wrap it up. Okay, I'm gonna do like. Okay, we're gonna be out of here by like 7:30. All right. Yeah. So we're passing in. Yeah. So it's still technically is hard coded because we are passing in hard coded data to the parameters. So the next step here would be to pass in all of this data here, which is just the next step to being able to hook up like a backend, let's say. Yeah, so we're gonna import like this is an array of like store items. Yeah. Import. What was this named again? Items. Pricing data. All right. Where was I? No, I didn't mean to import that there. We're gonna import this in the purchase page. Okay, so items is an array of JSON objects that tell us what items are in the store. Yeah, so we're gonna a really useful feature is the map function in JavaScript. So what the map function does is it iterates over an array, does some calculations, and returns something for each element in the array. So I'll show that with an example, of course. So items.map item. Okay, we need item. I know this is like kind of messy syntax, but I'll explain it. So return store item name. Okay, so item is it's basically our iterator variable. It's the variable that represents the item that we're currently iterating over. Yeah, so, it'll be like one of these. Yeah, so we can pass in the data like this. Name equals item.name. Thumbnail equals item.thumbnail. And price equals item.price. All right, so yeah. And yeah, so what we're doing here is we're iterating through the array, and for each object here, we are calling the store item component. All right, let's see that. And we can see it hasn't changed, so it still works. But this is just basically the next step in making the data more dynamic. Like, if this were a real website, we would want to turn data into React components. Like there's no backend here, but the next step would be to I guess call some API function up here, import the data, and then just render it right here. So if you have a good understanding of what this does, I would say you have a really good understanding of how React works and when and how you would use it in real websites. Any questions on this? Yeah.
What sort of classes are offered here? We're looking at more about this because I'm taking software engineering now, and it used to be like JavaScript, and now it's not.
So they're gonna have a web development class in the fall.
Like a special topics.
Yeah, it's gonna be a special topics. Okay. Yeah, and I'm sure they'll talk about this.
Cool.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna speed things up. I'm just gonna skip over a lot of things. Yes. Yeah. So I typed this out, and holy hell, it was a pain. Typing out all of this. But another thing you can do is what's called deconstructing. Yeah, deconstructing is cool. Yeah, so we can do this, and what this does is it'll pass in every attribute. I'm just gonna copy and paste this. Yes, yeah, so this is our example JavaScript object. So what ... item does is it'll pass in each one of these attributes individually. Right? So it's just so that you don't need to type out all of this, right? Okay, and enough of React. Honestly, I did not expect this meeting to go on for so long, but yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Last thing about React. Don't do this. This is inline styling, which is where you just define CSS within the tag of the HTML document. This is pathetic. Do not do this. Yeah, so also another thing. This is technically not pure CSS. This is JSS, which is CSS that's written in the format of JSON. So if this were pure CSS, then it would be written like that. But this isn't valid JavaScript, because in JavaScript this would be two variables being subtracted. So you write CSS rules in camel case, you put quotes around the value, and instead of a semicolon you just have a colon, because that's how JSON works. Yeah, so do not do inline styling, because what will happen here is for every component that you have, it'll copy this. So you can have a lot of duplicate code. It'll make your website slow as hell. Yeah, so so you would just want to have do what I was doing in here. Just create one of these. Just have something like this, right? Inline styling is generally not a good idea, in my opinion. Yeah. Okay. Another styling solution is like you can if you know that you suck ass at like writing CSS, like you can just import like component libraries. There's component libraries out there like MUI.com. That's something I used like when I was learning web dev. It was basically like a handicap for me. Material UI is like a design it's like a design guidelines made by Google. Somebody turned it into a bunch of React components that you can import, and it just makes creating pretty websites super, super much easier. What's that? What did you say?
I'm like something this cool cannot be free.
No, it is free. I mean, some of the more advanced components are actually paid, but yeah, this is free. Also, this has like the best documentation that I've like ever read. Like this basically taught me React. Honestly, the React documentation is terrible. Like it is not even updated. Like the official React documentation will tell you to use classes, which is like from 4 years ago. If there's documentation that tells you to use classes, it is outdated. Do not use it. Like React components are functions. They shouldn't be classes. Yeah. Wait, say that again? Wait, what is what?
NPM.
Oh yeah, NPM is stands for Node Package Manager, which is it's a manager for adding libraries to apps that use Node.js. I won't talk about Node.js right now, but you know, React uses Node.js. So NPM is like this massive collection of libraries. You know, I actually have a few, like if you look at package.json, you can see all of the libraries that I'm using. I have all of these. Like I'm not using all of them. I actually do have Material UI, installed, but I'm not using it. Yeah, these are what's called the dependencies. They're the NPM libraries that I'm using, or that are installed basically. Yeah. So like as I mentioned, like if you use default HTML, it's gonna look like a piece of crap. This is the default HTML button, whereas Material UI will give you much prettier buttons. So you don't need to write nearly as much CSS. However, I introduced this with caution because once again, like Google made Material UI guidelines. So you don't want to use Material UI for everything unless you want all your websites to look like it was made by Google. Because you want your websites to have like some of your own personality, and it is kind of a handicap. You don't always want to use this. No, it's all open source. Yeah, this is all open source. Yeah, so yeah, you can literally copy like entire components, like literally all of everything you see there on the screen. You can just copy for free. It's just libraries of like free components. And as I mentioned, package.json that tells you all of the libraries that I'm using. There's also scripts. Scripts tells you what like start runs the app. Build will compile the app, but in a much more optimized way so that you can deploy it later. Test the app if you have testing files. Eject, I have no idea what that does. Like, don't use that. Yeah, I'll skip that. Yeah, Jquery, like, I don't want to say Jquery is outdated because it's hard to say that about anything in the programming world, but yeah, it is kind of on its way out. It has been getting killed by like Angular and React. Angular kind of came out like around here, and then you can see Jquery kind of dies, and yeah, like Jquery is a thing of the past, basically. Yeah, deployment. Okay, last 3 slides. Yeah, GitHub Pages is a way to host really basic static HTML, JavaScript, CSS websites, meaning React would not run on GitHub Pages, but it's still a really useful thing to learn. I hosted my first ever website on GitHub Pages. Yeah. Yes, it's really basic. It's just an HTML file. Like you go to the settings tab. There's a tab here for pages, and you're like, oh, just deploy the master branch, and then you can see the incredible website here. This is the first website I've ever made. I made it like in high school. It takes a super long time to load, by the way, because there's like a 50 megabyte image here of my dog. Yeah, like you can also. Yeah. Okay. So, but if you want to host React apps, Heroku I would say is the most popular and the easiest. But yeah, there's some downsides to it. But like yeah, it's free and it's really easy. It's kind of the same thing with GitHub Pages. You're like, oh, just take my master branch, run npm start, and it'll be deployed on some URL, right? However, the server will go to sleep after like half an hour of inactivity. And after that, might take like 40 seconds to restart. And you can kind of bypass this by having a bot that goes on the website every 29 minutes. But that's kind of sus because there are better solutions out there. Like Heroku is literally just like a worse AWS Amplify, in my opinion. Like, oh yeah. Yeah, like GitHub Pages is for like vanilla JavaScript. But React requires like a file server because it like builds your HTML files dynamically. So React wouldn't run here, but vanilla JavaScript would.
You can get React to work, but you probably want to find another tool that will do the heavy lifting for you.
Like an iframe. Basically. Okay.
It's static content. You can't do anything dynamic, but you can still do some of the crazy React stuff. You just need something to manage any type of static, it's like server-side rendering, basically.
Yeah. So AWS Amplify, this uses what's called like serverless technology. So basically you pay for the resources that you use, which in my case is like $0.01 a month. It's not technically free, but it kind of is. But in my opinion, AWS Amplify is just better Heroku because like since it's part of AWS, it gives you access to so many tools out there. Like you can purchase a domain really easily. It'll give you a free SSL certificate, and then you can hook it up with like an API and then a database. Yeah.
Doesn't Google Cloud also offer like 300 free credits to students, like $300 worth of free credits to students?
Yeah. So if you go to the hackathon, you can probably get some credits for Google Cloud or maybe just have credit just by being a student. But yeah, okay. I think I'll post these tools and resources later. Like I'm sorry, I did not expect this meeting to go on this long, but y'all are champs for like I guess staying this long. By the way, this PowerPoint was like 50 slides. This PowerPoint was literally 50 slides. I don't know, maybe I should have split it up into two, but oh yeah, so once again, take a picture of this. Is there anyone on Zoom left? I'm honestly impressed if there's anyone on Zoom. Oh, I'm not. Like, no one's on Zoom. Well, I guess it's useful for the recording, but yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you all for joining. Hope to see you guys next week for the Verizon speaker. Yeah. Awesome.
I've had like 3 on our front-end development workshops, and as a beginner who knows nothing about front-end,
like a meeting on full, like front-end was literally took like an hour and a half. Like, how are you gonna do a meeting on full stack?
So the only thing I add, so the reason it's called reactivity